thing brotherhood in the church is all about. Do we? I don't think so. Here are some of the implications of what it looks like to love one another as brothers and sisters. This is the kind of behavior God is looking for from us as a church in this ministry season, this critical ministry season that we're in. As Melissa talked about, living in the moment. Let's live in the moment as a congregation. If we're brothers and sisters, we've got a claim on one another's resources and wealth. And that's what turned Lucien Samosata off, because you see, he was a wealthy man. And frankly, he didn't want to share or think about sharing. So when someone in the family has a financial crisis, what does the family do? My sister, Carissa, and her husband, they were here last week, and she's 8 months pregnant right now. But they battled infertility for over 6 years. And as a family, we had a discussion. Would we be willing to give some of our money so that they could get in vitro if they ran out of money? And every one of us said, yeah, we would do that. We would do that for our sister. That's what family does. That's what family does, right? So when people in Cambridge think about River City Church, do they think of us as being that kind of community? Do they see us radically sharing our resources and our wealth for the health of the church and for the health of individuals in the church? Are they moved to amazement the way that this critic of the church, Lucius Samosata, was moved to amazement by the actions of other believers? I don't think so. Less than 100 years after the death of the Apostle Paul, an early church leader named Justin Martyr wrote these words, which are recorded for us, speaking to his congregation. We who once took most pleasure in the means of increasing our wealth and property now bring what we have into a common fund and share with everyone in need. We who hated and killed one another and would not associate with men of different tribes because of their different customs, now, after the manifestation of Christ, live together and pray for our enemies. It's like the 2nd century. Do people look at our church and say that about us? Sonship has radical implications for how we do church. Shifting gears here, is there anything more amusing than when your brother or sister brings home their girlfriend or boyfriend for the first time? How many agree that's pretty cool, isn't it? And you see them, right? And they're trying to act all polite, and they're not themselves. Like, they're acting differently. Like, I think they're trying to communicate that they got no bad habits or flaws. And they may fool their girlfriend or boyfriend, at least for a time, but you're not fooled, are you? Right? Like, you're just like snickering across the table, you know. They're not passing wind or whatever they normally do. It's just not real, right? Well, a lot of people attending a lot of churches are like the brother or sister who brings their girlfriend or boyfriend home for the first time. They dress different at church than they would dress anywhere else. They act nicer at church than they act in their homes with their family members. They talk differently than they do when they're at work on the assembly line. In a word, they work awfully hard to cover up their flaws, their bad habits, or even their hurts and pains that we all inevitably get in this life. Which highlights the second way that sonship changes the way we do church. Churches that understand sonship are real. What you see is what you get. People endeavor to be real. What you see is what you get. You don't see Daryl up here on a Sunday and he's like, then see me on a Wednesday afternoon at the mall doing something that you wouldn't expect and say, wow, he's really a jerk, or whatever. What you see is what you get. There's an honesty, there's a transparency about our flaws and our weaknesses, and about our hurts and the pains that we have in life. We don't act like we got it all together and we've never hurt or had a sleepless night because of suffering or whatever. Finally, in churches that understand sonship, people demonstrate an unconditional, undifferentiated commitment to one another. Unconditional, undifferentiated. You didn't choose your siblings, right? No, you didn't, by the way. And I'm sure that if you had a choice, some of the siblings that some of you have, you wouldn't choose to be best friends with, right? I won't go there. But there's a bond there, right? Because you had the same ordeal of being raised by the same parents. How many of you drove here this morning? I think all of you, just about. Anybody didn't drive here? Okay, Pat might. If you drove here, you likely passed churches in your neighborhood. You likely passed a number of churches to get here, which means that if you drove here, you chose to come to this church. And I'm glad you did. And that's okay that you did that. I'm thrilled, actually. Nevertheless, once you're inside the church, you don't choose your sisters and brothers. Which means you must not avoid people that you don't like. It means you can't network in a church the way you network in other organizations. You can't, this new phenomenon of social networking, you can't do that the way you do it elsewhere. You know, I like you, so you're in. I don't really like you, so you're out. And I expect that being brothers and sisters in the church would affect how we do things like Facebook or Twitter or other social networking. Someone said to me, Daryl, take that out of your message because that's going to hit people too directly. I think our job as Christians in the culture that we live in is to say, you know what, technology is a great gift. I didn't have Facebook when I was a kid, and I'm glad that it exists. But we have to be analytical on how we do it, how we do social networking today, because we are the Church of Jesus Christ. And Christianity is supposed to be counter-cultural. People are supposed to see us as being a different kind of community. They're supposed to scratch their heads and say, what's going on at River City Church? Those people are different. And every church is bound to include people that we wouldn't necessarily pick as friends. However, the way God does community, those self-same people are often the ones that have something to say to us. They're often the ones that have something to teach us, or that God will use them to teach us something about maturity in the body. Again, you can choose your church, but once you're in the church, you can't choose your brothers and sisters. It's that radical. And that leads to my final point. If we're to be a brotherhood community, then we've got to grant the people surrounding us in this community life-shaping impact. We've got to give them permission to shape us. Iron sharpening iron and so forth. When you're young, I think, you think you're the product of your choices and decisions, right? And then the older you get, you realize that, well, largely you're the product of your family of origins. As much as you hate to admit it, your family of origins is what shapes you the most. Why is that? Well, there's the genetic thing, first of all. And then second, there's the fact that you, at minimum, probably spent 18 years living in the same house, right? That's got to rub off on you. That's got to have an effect on you. Well, what shapes Christian community? I agree with Tim Keller. He says, it's not the books that you read, it's not the sermons that you come to hear. You mainly become like the people you hang out with most, the people you live with most. You see, you go to a company, and the thing that unites you with your coworkers is your desire for a paycheck. You join a chess club, and the thing that unites you with the other chess players is your love of the game. You go to a class, and the thing that unites you with the other students is your desire for a degree. In each of those instances, you have only one natural point of contact, but in a family, you have multiple points of contact. You eat together, you grow together, you travel together, you talk together, you spend time out together. It's what people that hang out together do in family. And it's the people that you hang out with most that will shape you the most.